All right, welcome back to Power Breakfast. We're going to take a look at the news and the news making headlines, and of course, new developments that are coming through, courtesy of the dailies as well. The Daily Nation front page says plan to pay members of parliament more. It is a fresh proposal by the House team that seeks to raise monthly allowances of the legislators, about 416 of them. It goes on to say that the icing on the cake will not be on the floor of the chamber, but in the cafeteria and pub outside, which will be refurbished and equipped with larger teapots, sleek counters, manned by 5-star hotel quality chefs. So it goes on page 2, where they go ahead and break it down for us. They have a few people here, majority of members of parliament who spoke to the nation, say that these proposals are long overdue. Of course, it was presented. It's a new proposal presented by the Service and Facilities Committee, and only the SRC stands in the way. Remember, in July 1st, 2017, the SRC reduced the basic pay of members of parliament from 710,000 to 621,000. But now they're going for new pays, and like it says there on page 2, higher pay, larger teapots for members of parliament. All right, to put some of these matters and more to perspective, we are joined by David Osiany, public policy expert, and also later on Dan Manzo will be joining us. David, your initial thoughts on this? I see you have a worried look on your face.
No, not really. I refuse to believe that our members of parliament are that insensitive. They're among the best paid in the world. And of course, to improve the facilities for them is not a bad thing in its entirety, really. But there are pressures on the economy at the moment that need that financing that would be directed in doing that. Of course, I bet all of us want to be healthy, and they too need to be healthy.
Right.
There are constraints about where the MPs can go because of the risks that come with political office and things like that, so they prefer to have it within the chamber. But to argue for better parks, because if the allegation that they are going to argue for much more allowances than they already have, that would be a little bit insensitive. But I'm usually quick to note that the problem is not even in what the MPs are paid. Rather, the problem sits in the inequality of the cadres of payment in the country. What is the difference between an MP's pay and the government sweeper's pay?
And Cuban doctors.
Exactly, and Cuban doctors. If you're able to meet that gap, because if you total the salaries of the MPs, really, even with such, grotesque spending,
right,
still it is nothing. It's a drop in the ocean. It's not something that would shake the country. The focus then ought to be, how do we save the 30% of our budget that is lost to corruption? Now we have a budget of 3 trillion, Willis. Bigger than Tanzania, Uganda, and Rwanda combined. Tanzania itself is bigger than Kenya by population and by size. So if our budget is almost twice more the total of those 3, there's a problem. Now, if you're going to lose 30% of 3 trillion, you're going to lose 1 trillion to corruption. 1 trillion can move mountains. Even if our budget had remained at 2 trillion and we lose 600 billion to corruption, that would be able to sort out some of these messes. That's why there are times when I feel good that the battle against corruption is ongoing. I just hope that we can fight it in its entirety, so that we deal with this menace once and for all. Yeah.
And also in terms of, like they say, they're looking for new parks, and like you mentioned about the budget and, your expertise is in public policy also as well. Do you think that that the problem, like you said, the root cause is that we're not setting the right policies as well in terms of management of the country?
Well, I think
the funds.
I think the houses, the parliamentary houses, both Senate and the National Assembly, especially the National Assembly, have this immense power that enables them to sometimes just, change the laws as they deem fit. If they don't like you, for example, they will slash your budget. The judiciary right now does not have money to pay for the, for the health care, the health insurance of its workers. Our judges are now not insured. They'll have to dig into their pockets. All the judiciary workers, because I think there was an altercation of sorts, a disagreement between the judiciary feeling independent and is independent, and the members of parliament feeling, okay, if you think you're independent, finance yourselves. So they chopped their budget. What I think we need is a lot more focused and visionary leaders in parliament. We have them. We have quite a massive number. But we also have those who are just merely parochial. A little more focus so that we are not acting at the behest of our political masters. We are not just taking actions without thinking about their consequences. And it's not taken because of selfish reasons or because of egos, but because of the nation. So we, of course, definitely need a little more laws that would be able to tie down. But how then are you able to how are you able to clamp on the powers of the legislature as an arm of government without interfering with the rights that that house enjoys? So that is a very, very thin line. But we will strike the balance, I hope, someday.
Right. I want to just take a look at some of the details of this. And of course, like I said, stories on page 2 of The Nation. You can check out a little bit later on. It says here that right now, members of parliament are entitled to about 20 million mortgage that is subject to a rate of 3% per annum, which must be fully paid by the end of 5-year term. However, members of parliament members of parliament who had a session with the committee said members of both houses should be entitled to house allowances on top of that mortgage of 20 million. Then it also says that the members of parliament now want their per diems to be given to them in full so that they seek their own accommodation when they travel outside Nairobi. And then they say that the car grant that they're being given, which is 5 million, is not enough. And I want to quote here, it says the members of parliament who spoke to The Nation yesterday said that 5 million Kenyan shillings is not sufficient to purchase a decent 4-wheel drive vehicle that will not fall apart within months, given the terrain and mileage that most MPs cover every month.
I bet the MPs who are interviewed are obsessed with material. The best lessons world over are of selfless leaders. This notion that once you become a parliamentarian, then you must have a sense of some largesse is one thing we need to cure among the parliamentarians just as much as we need to cure it among the citizenry. Because parliamentarians feel that when they take office, they have to look the part. All right? If they were able to campaign in the places they campaigned in, without what they now call decent 4-wheel drives, and they were able to be able to elected and get to the corners of their constituencies and come to parliament, then certainly the demand for this largesse is unnecessary. And as I have always admonished, wear power lightly on your sleeves like a watch that you can take off, put aside, and because when all is said and done, none of these positions is permanent.
Right.
They're all transient. So if you want to get yourself used to a life that you cannot sustain thereafter, it becomes problematic. I bet, Willis, 5 million shillings gives every person a decent opportunity to own a fairly decent car. You can get an 8-year-old Prado 150 at 5 million shillings, diesel-driven supercar, which is what most of them use. I don't know what they propose in terms of ownership. I don't know whether everyone wants to drive a V8. I don't know whether everyone wants to, because then we lose focus on what then is the role of a parliamentarian. I do not refuse that they ought to live a decent life, and I do not refuse that the pressures put on them are immense. I do not refuse that they deserve to be paid fairly well, but globally, our parliamentarians are among the best paid in the world. Among the top 10 countries that pays its parliamentarians the best, Kenya features among the top 10. And once you know that, and if you're conscious about the inequality in the country, and you are not seen to be pushing for, a higher minimum wage for the lower cadre employees of civil service, if you're not seen to be pushing for better payment of lecturers who are the producers of these parliamentarians, if you're not seen to be pushing for better pay of our health workers, as they cry to be paid just as good as the Cuban doctors are paid, if you're not seen to be pushing very consistently for better pay of, all cadre of staff in government and civil service, but you're very keen and can even cause havoc when it's time to additionally get yourself some money, then I think that is what English defines as insensitivity. You have forgotten about your larger mandate, and you've decided to be narrow-minded about what is the most I can make because I am not assured that I'm back in 5 years. That's a mindset we need to deal with. It is a mindset that enables even corruption to fester. So I hope we're able to, and our parliamentarians are able to be a little more sensitive. When they're doing their budgets, they can put pressure in the floor of the house and say, enough is enough. Our teachers in elementary level, in our nursery schools, the ECDs, in our secondary schools, our teachers deserve a handsome pay. Our police officers deserve a better shelter and better pay and better take home. Once you do that, then you create an environment where your pay, even if you pushed for its increase, looks sensible and is buyable by the public.
I want to just look at a little bit of that because I see Dan Mars in the corner of my eye. I want him to come and weigh in on this as well.